Hello there, and welcome to Cybersecurity Today. I'm Jim Wiggins, the host of this show. In case this is the first time that you've seen our show, let me provide you with a quick overview. We've developed this show to deal with the topic of cybersecurity. I'm a longtime practitioner in the cybersecurity industry, and here we tackle the subject of computer security in an exciting and thought-provoking manner. This show is a 30-minute program that uses a talk show newscast format to discuss themes, topics, and current events in the cybersecurity space. If you want to learn more about cybersecurity, you've come to the right place. For those viewers who are current practitioners, like myself, this show will provide thought leadership from cyber experts on the direction of the cybersecurity industry. So we really focus on trying to serve a number of different stakeholder groups, from the beginner all the way to the subject matter expert. We hope you enjoy today's program. Today, we're going to be discussing Credentialing the Future, insights from the Cybersecurity Credentials Collaborative, or C3. We are privileged to be joined by Dr. James Stanger, the president of the C3 group, who is also from CompTIA, and Mr. Brian Correia, the C3 treasurer, who is also from SANS or GIAC. Together, we will delve deep into the vision, mission, and future prospects of the C3 organization. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll be spending the full show talking to both James and Brian. We'll see you on the other side. Have you heard about the Open Security Control Assessment Language, also known as OSCL, that's been developed and managed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST? OSCL is a groundbreaking initiative designed to streamline the security assessment process for both public and private organizations by providing a standardized language for expressing security controls. OSCL enables the automation of security control documentation, assessment, and reporting, eliminating manual error-prone processes. With OSCL, security control information can be easily shared among stakeholders, fostering collaboration and ensuring compliance with various regulations. Use of OSCL can help to improve the efficiency of your organization, but also can contribute to a safer, more secure digital environment for everyone. More information about the Open Security Control Assessment Language and how to implement it in your organization can be found by scanning the QR code or at the official OSCL website. Welcome back to Cybersecurity Today. Joining us for our next segment is Dr. James Stanger, president of the Cybersecurity Credentials Collaborative, C3, and he is also the chief technology evangelist at CompTIA. With over 2 decades in the IT industry, James is renowned for his work in security consulting, certification design, and his contributions as an award-winning author. Joining James is Mr. Brian Correia, the treasurer of C3, who is also with the SANS Institute and the GIAC program. Brian boasts a rich history in business development with a keen focus on certifications and has significantly influenced industry frameworks, aiding top-tier companies and governmental bodies. Together, they're here to shed light on Credentialing the Future, insights from the Cybersecurity Credentials Collaborative. Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, thanks, man. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So, hey, James, I thought maybe we'd start with you and ask if you could provide us some context of what the Cybersecurity Credentials Collaborative is all about, or the C3. Could you speak to that for a moment?
With the C3, you have 7 of the major cybersecurity players working together to talk about and promote assessment-based education. You have organizations such as the IAPP, FITSI, ISC2, SANS GIAC, the CERT Nexus, CompTIA, and ISACA. I think I listed them all there. And the whole idea is for us to get together and basically act as boosters for what it means to not just educate folks, but make sure that these folks have learned. And so we work with corporations, we work with organizations such as ANAB, for ANSI, for ISO, things like that, and of course governments around the world.
Great, thank you. Hey, Brian, I thought maybe I'd ask you the next question.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's required to become a member? James kind of rattled off the different organizations that make up the C3, but can just any organization join? What kind of criteria is in place?
We're looking for accredited organizations. We ask that they be ANAB accredited, so it's the American National Standards. It used to be called ANSI. So that's one of the main requirements. We do look for organizations that have at least a little bit of a history. So we're looking for about 3 years or above. And we're also looking for a certain amount of certified holders, just so it's kind of the more well-established organizations. But there's no special criteria, like there's no voting or anything along those lines beyond that. So the idea is, as long as you're a cybersecurity body, maybe one additional thing is that you have to be vendor neutral. So, and you have to be an association. But the idea is that, all are welcome that meet that criteria, right? The idea is that we're not here to influence each other. We're here to support each other.
Understood, understood. So James, that builds an interesting question that I have. Can we talk a little bit about, Brian was talking about cybersecurity credentials. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are in the industry today about the credentials that people try to pursue? Are there any specific kind of touch points or pressure points or misconceptions you think that people have about what certifications actually do?
You could even call them old tapes that people keep running. Brian will often use that phrase. I think some of the biggest misconceptions is the idea that, well, a certification exam doesn't, if you just pass it, it just means you memorize stuff. It doesn't represent true competency, which is, I think, a major misconception out there. I'll put it this way. I know for whatever reason, a lot of medical doctors, I don't really go to them, but I know a lot of them. And guess what? They take a lot of certification exams, for continuing education. They did that to become doctors. And these certification exams are delivered pretty much the exact same way cybersecurity exams are. I don't think anybody would ever say a competent doctor just knows how to pass an exam, okay? Just drawing that analogy. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there.
Understood. Brian, do you want to add anything to that? Any other thoughts you have about maybe misconceptions that the industry has about what credentials actually do in the cyber market?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, going on to James, sometimes I think the concern is that certification only teaches you knowledge. It never teaches you the skills of how to do these work roles. I would say maybe the other big one is, hey, when you develop a certification, you develop a series of questions and that's it. The reality is, and that's true of all these bodies, that's maybe 20% of the work. And there's a ton of other stuff that goes into building those certifications to make sure that there's fairness in the testing process. And so I don't believe a lot of people understand all the work that goes behind the scenes on that. And a lot of times it's not really advertised a lot, as far as what's called psychometrics, to make sure that all demographics are treated the same. So whether that is male versus female, parts of the world, it's also different types of people. So Caucasian versus African American versus, I would say, Hispanic, all the different areas that are out there. All that's put into weight, all those questions, making sure those questions are valid questions, things along those lines.
Understood, understood. So James, building off of Brian's comments, that spawns a question. Given all that rigor that goes into the process of certifying individuals, how do these credentials help improve the underlying security posture of organizations? Can you speak to that for a minute?
I think the biggest way that they really help organizations do that is they cut to the chase. These credentials are created by literally, each of them, whether it be from GIAC or from ISC2 or from CompTIA, wherever, are created by literally thousands of working IT professionals, and they're created far quicker than you would ever think. So the speed, you can call it to market, or the speed to the educator really allows organizations to move forward with confidence, because now as organizations use these tools, they have what I would call indicators of advancement or indicators of achievement. In the cybersecurity industry, right, we use the term indicator of compromise or indicator of attack, right? I like to think that as we move forward with our education offerings, with certification offerings, we give organizations that opportunity to say, here's where competence is, and here's where you can get a laser-like focus. And to Brian's point earlier about psychometricians and fairness, it's all about gathering tons of data and then making sure that everybody is at an equitable, fair starting point. And I think it's those kinds of things that have resonated through the industry, especially with educators. We've got to do things a bit different, people have realized, and I think we're major part of that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So Brian, let's talk now about what goes into a credential and maybe some attributes that differentiate it or make it a strong credential for the cybersecurity workforce. Are there? You talked about psychometrics. You talked about fair validity.
Yep.
But in the workspace, how would viewers try to compare and contrast credentials and say, well, that one is really better than this one? And you mentioned ANAB. I would assume that's a factor in it. But are there any other kind of indicators that you might look to that help kind of demonstrate strong credential attributes?
Yeah, I mean, and all the ones in the C3, I think, do it, which is like, for example, a job task analysis. Take a look at what their exam objectives are. Take a look at a whole bunch of things that back that all up, right? So they may not even just give you the titles of the different subjects they're covering, but they'll give you an idea of what those objectives are. Take a close look at that. I mean, I think the great thing is all these bodies all do some really, really good things, right? We're all a little bit different from each other. We all offer products, so whether or not it's entry, advanced, somewhere in between, is it a specific work role? What are you looking for, right? So, you know, and there's some really good, I think, comparisons of our certifications. You know, sometimes I always mention pauljeremy.com is a really good one to check out.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, even Googling, you know, I would say Reddit, some of the comparisons of the certifications. I mean, I think the reality is they all offer some really good, and now it's just how does it fit into your career, right? Which one, where do you want to start and where do you want to finish, right? I think really makes a difference. I mean, the reality is very well-established people in our industry oftentimes have all of our certifications, right? They don't just have one of ours, they have multiple from different certification bodies. And that's very common. In some ways, I actually encourage that.
So James, I want to just build on what Brian said, and that's this idea that it's not just about somebody going out and writing a test, but there's a lot of backstory to what they did to get to that point. Can you speak to any additional indicators that you tend to see from CompTIA's perspective, and obviously as the president of C3, that really help enforce this idea that a credential happens to be, you know, maybe a little bit more rigorous or a little bit stronger in that respect? Any thoughts on that?
You know, it's been interesting. It's been interesting work with psychometricians and also with the people who basically wrangle together subject matter experts in a room, virtual room, a physical room, or what have you, and get the discussions going about what's important and what's not. Because the thing that certifications do is they basically articulate and they visualize what a professional job role is, whether it be a security analyst, a pen tester, compliance analyst. You know, there's three of them, right? Cloud security architect, and really put it together. It's always fantastic. Whenever I can, I'll just try to get into the dinner sessions. They won't let me into the room where the SMEs are. We keep a very strong separation of church and state there. But it's always fun to find ways to talk to the subject matter experts and get to know them, get to know their bosses. The instant access you have into the wisdom of the industry is wonderful. I was earlier this morning at a podcast, I was asked, you know, what do I do to keep learning? And I said, it's great. I have a great job that's always keeping me on my toes and teaching me things. I got off a call helping some folks put together a post-quantum cybersecurity kind of set of offerings. It's an exciting field to be in because you're always helping people get to a level of competence.
Understood. So, hey, Brian, I want to build on something that you were talking about earlier,
Okay.
this idea of fairness.
Yeah, sure.
From your perspective, how do you envision that credentials can make sure that they're accessible to everyone, irrespective of their background or their level of experience? Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, I mean, there is ways, and I know that all of our associations do that, which is, we do offer opportunities, especially in the entry level, for folks to get in. Some of the ways we do it is we actually have some free academies that are built here for people that are in the military, for women, diversity. We also do a whole bunch of different things. Like, for example, we accept GI Bill, which I believe is true of pretty much across the board. So, some of the ways that people do it is they come in through their tuition reimbursement, but we're also looking at, different ways that we can provide that so people that normally couldn't afford it have opportunities to be able to do that. And I think it's even beyond certifications. So, like, for example, we have a series of cyber ranges. Like, for example, we'll have a holiday hack fest that'll be coming up here shortly. And I think it's about 60,000 people actually go through that holiday hack fest. But we offer, for example, where all the HBCUs schools will also compete with each other. So Howard won it last year. Maybe that's surprise, no surprise. But, opportunities to get people also very excited into cybersecurity also build up, like we have a high school program. But, when it comes to certification, as you can imagine, one of the things that's always a concern in this industry is, do we have enough people, and do we have enough people with the right skills? And then, of course, I know James will agree with me on this one, also in reverse, are we meeting the expectations? Or, the question always is, hey, when people are listing jobs, they're looking for job sets that really don't make sense, or there's a couple unicorns that are out there, but there's not hundreds or thousands of people that can do that.
Understood.
There may be 10 in this industry that can. And sometimes I think the biggest complaint I hear, and I'd love to hear from maybe James on this one, is you do hear people going, gosh, I'm really excited about cybersecurity, but I can't figure out how to enter the industry. And I think that is a big concern, where you got job recs that are looking for entry-level jobs that want 5 years worth of work experience. Well, as you can imagine, somehow or another, you have to walk in the door, right? And so, I think that is a big concern of our industry. Certifications, I think, is one way of being able to get that path there. I don't think it's always the perfect path, if that makes sense. Because in some ways with certifications, you do want to have a little bit of in the door before you go, and I think that's true of all of our certifications. But, that is something, if I would say there's a concern, and I do at least think that all the certification bodies are working together to try to solve all of that.
James, did you want to add anything to that? I mean, he
bet.
called you out, so I thought maybe give you an opportunity to give your perspective on that question as well, too.
Well, what I think that's really important is that as far as people getting into the field, there's definitely been a confidence gap. Our CEO, Todd Thibodeau, is very articulate at explaining how there's a confidence gap out there and where people don't know where to get started. And that's partly because there's kind of an expectations gap as well. Let me explain that just real quick. A friend of mine put together one time a very interesting API tool, and it got thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of downloads. So much so it's in job roles, must be able to work with this API. Well, he had it out about a year and a half, and he then noticed something interesting. He noticed that in job requests for developers, it said, people must have this expertise in this API over 3 years of experience. Now, the API had only been in the public for a year and a half. Now, that's a problem. That's a divide by zero error. So my point is, not only do we offer, all of the members of the C3 offer pathways for people to get in. At CompTIA, we have CompTIA Spark, for example, which is aimed right at getting people no-cost education in demographics that need it. That's just an example. You see similar activities throughout the board, throughout the C3. But this expectations gap is something that needs to be articulated. And so you find that our organizations don't just focus on just the education part of it. There is an entire continuum kind of around, or a whole continuum of expectations and a whole continuum of activities that our respective organizations work very hard on, very hard on to work to make sure that people solve various problems that are out there having to do with various gaps, whether it be the skills gap, I'd rather call it the confidence gap, or other gaps that are going on.
Understood, understood. So we've talked about it from the candidate or the individual's perspective. Now let's talk about it from the organization's perspective.
Yeah.
How do you think that certifications, Brian, help build confidence for organizations that their personnel know what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, so, I mean, sometimes I think there's a little bit of a misconception, so I was going to throw that in, that certifications means that it's the top individuals within their organization. What it is a skills validation. So it's no different than having a license for a doctor or a CPA, which is another certification in the accounting world. What it is a skills validation. And what we're seeing is more and more over time, like I'm seeing cases where security teams are required to have a certification to have a skills validation. So have a baseline of that particular security team, right? Or it could be anything from a CISO or anything along those lines. So you're starting to see more mandates over time. I mean, the big one right now is the Security Exchange Commission, which is requiring a cybersecurity report, which is no different than a financial report for all shareholders. The goal out of that is to share with the investors and the shareholders of what is your cybersecurity posture. Well, one of those questions on there is, what is your security team? Like, what's their expertise? What's the expertise of your C-suite, your CISO, your CIO? And certification becomes a good way of helping to validate, no different than any other industry, I think, that's out there. And we're hearing cases where it's coming up now in audits. We're hearing where it's now a requirement for insurance purposes. So it's coming up in many, many different ways, or even that it's used to kind of enable business. So cases where people are now saying, hey, you should hire us because we have a skills validation of our security teams, and it's backed up by one of our great bodies that does it.
Understood, understood. Hey, James, I want to throw the next question to you, and it's kind of build a little bit on top of that, just kind of the evolution of the market. From your estimation, when you talk about the development and the maintenance of these cyber certifications, how do they encompass things like emerging technologies? It seems like artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum, which you just mentioned, is all the rage nowadays. How do the C3 bodies ensure that they are kind of staying on that cutting edge? Can you speak to that for a minute?
It goes back to the JTA, job. Do
you want to take that, Brian?
Yeah. So it does go back to the job task analysis, and those do have to be updated on a regular basis. And our certifications do have to be updated also on a regular basis. So the one thing that's always a guarantee in cybersecurity is that it will continue changing, right? Now, between all our bodies, we're always looking at these new technologies and also being a little bit careful at the same time, right? Like AI, there's still some things that are being developed on that. And the reality is the market sometimes drives that for you. Like I sometimes mention, a firewall analyst used to be considered 20 years ago one of the top work roles in cybersecurity. These days, there's no such thing as a firewall analyst, but a cloud engineer, while cloud was even, I would say 3 years ago, starting to merge, now it's starting to emerge as its own work role. That's very recent, right? Now, does that mean that cloud's brand new? Not necessarily, but it was considered something that enabled you to do your job. Now it's suddenly becoming an actual work role, right? So as time goes on, and I think between all the bodies, we're always looking at what is the market pushing us for? And so that's within the certifications, and I think that's even developing new certifications.
So with that being said, I know we lost James for a few minutes, so let me ask you the next question, and that goes to, well, with this evolution, what are you seeing in terms of the biggest challenges that the cybersecurity industry is facing today? Is it AI? Is it quantum? Where should somebody be putting their time and effort, do you think?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's interesting because, the other interesting thing I think about cybersecurity is we're not just one job, right? There's so many, And so, the whole idea that all is welcome. In other words, I think a lot of times people think cybersecurity is a bunch of hackers with hoodies on, right? And that does exist, but there's so many other areas that are out there. Now, where should you focus your time? I would say every individual is a little bit different. And I think sometimes what you want to do is you kind of want to start at the entry level and do a little bit of a broad and find out, do I want to become a forensics analyst? Do I want to go into pen testing? Do I want to become a manager? Do I want to go into the legal side of things? Because all of those have a little bit of a different skill set and I think of a different personality. So I think if you talk to some of the top people in each one of those fields, you will realize there was an aha moment for them where they say, this is what I want to do for my career. And ultimately what they wanted to do at that point was, I was going to become the best I could in that field. Like I think of people over here at SANS, like Heather Mihalik. She does mobile forensics, right? Very specialized, but she's kind of built herself as one of the best in the industry, or in Ed Scotus in the pest testing world, where, that's always my recommendation is kind of learn the different specialties that are out there. I know all of us offer resources, even for free. Like we have a Cyber Aces, we have programs for high school students where you can start figuring that out. And don't be so worried about the industry of, AI is hot today, because I think ultimately all of these things are hot. It's just a question of what you're really good at and try to become one of the best in that field.
Understood. Last final question, 10 seconds, Brian. How can viewers learn more about the C3 organization?
Yeah, if they go to www.cybersecuritycc, so CC3, as you can see, .org. So cybersecuritycc.org.
Perfect. Thank you. Gentlemen, we are out of time. James, Brian, thanks for your insight and for elaborating on the vital role of the Cybersecurity Credentials Collaborative in shaping the future. That's a wrap for today's episode of Cybersecurity Today. Again, a heartfelt thanks to Dr. James Stanger and Mr. Brian Correia for their invaluable insight. To stay updated on future episodes, visit our website at cybersecuritytoday.org. Join us for more episodes to stay updated on the fascinating world of cybersecurity. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed. Goodbye.